Now that he's gone, it's time for you to start fresh. Somewhere else, Tessa said, lifting her wine glass with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Grieve, pack your bags, and don't come back. I blinked, the words hanging in the air like smoke. My son Gregory sat across the dinner table from me, unmoved, nodding slowly. The house was never really yours anyway, Mom. It was always Dad's. I didn't speak. Not yet. I couldn't. We were sitting in the same dining room where Samuel and I had hosted every family Christmas, every birthday, every home-cooked Sunday supper for the past 32 years. And now, 1 week after he was lowered into the ground, this woman, my daughter-in-law, was speaking to me like I was a tenant whose lease had expired. The room was quiet aside from the clink of cutlery and the occasional fake laugh from Tessa as she scrolled through something on her phone. Sam's absence echoed louder than any words. His chair was empty, but I could still see his reading glasses resting on the sideboard, where he'd always left them after dinner. I had polished the wood just this morning, just in case, as if clean furniture could somehow make this less painful. I had made beef pot roast, Sam's favorite, thinking it would comfort us, thinking Gregory might, for once, act like the boy I raised. But the food went mostly untouched. Tessa barely looked at it, and Gregory spent most of dinner staring into his iced tea like it held answers. When I finally spoke, it was just to fill the silence. I thought the service was beautiful, I said softly. Your father would have appreciated how many people came. Tessa didn't look up from her plate. Sure, but that's why we need to talk about the next step. This house, it's too much for you now. All that space, all those rooms. You're not exactly in your prime, Fiona. My grip tightened around my napkin. I've lived here since Gregory was 12. And now he's a grown man, she snapped, with his own family, and we've been thinking this house has real potential. High ceilings, good bones. We could expand the kitchen, maybe knock out the sunroom. The words struck like hailstones, loud, cold, and relentless. Gregory finally spoke. Mom, Tessa's right. We're not trying to hurt you. It just makes sense. You've got your memories. But this house, this life, it's too much to manage. You should consider something more manageable. A senior condo, maybe, or assisted living. There are nice places. I stared at my only child. His eyes avoided mine. This isn't just a house, I said, my voice trembling despite my best effort. This is where I kissed your father good night every night for 3 decades, where we raised you, where we planned to retire together. Tessa folded her napkin neatly, her voice finally stripped of all pretense. "You were just the widow, Fiona. You had your chapter. Now let us write ours." I didn't reply, not in that moment. Instead, I stood quietly and began clearing the dishes. They thought I was finished, useless, forgotten, but they had no idea what Samuel had left behind, and tomorrow I would find out. The next morning, I stood in front of First Austin Financial Bank, staring at the glass doors for longer than I should have. I hadn't slept well. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Tessa's voice again. "You were just the widow." I smoothed my coat, took a deep breath, and walked in. "Mrs. Lawson," a soft voice called as I stepped up to the front desk. I turned and saw Miriam Patel, the branch manager, walking toward me. She had known Sam and me for over 20 years, ever since we'd refinanced the house to open his furniture business. She reached out, squeezing my hand. "I'm so sorry about Sam," she said. "He was always so polite, and he never forgot to ask about my son's piano recitals." I managed a tired smile. "Thank you, Miriam. He always liked talking to you. He said you knew your numbers better than anyone else." She gave a warm chuckle, then gestured toward her office. "Come on in. Let's see how I can help." I sat down across from her, suddenly feeling the weight of my ignorance. "Sam handled all our finances," I admitted. "I know we had a joint account and a retirement account, but beyond that, I honestly don't know what's in my name or what I'm even entitled to." Miriam's expression softened. "You're not the first to say that. Let me pull up the records, and we'll go through this together." Her fingers clicked across the keyboard. Then her eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, this is interesting." My heart skipped. "What is it?" She turned the monitor slightly toward me. "Aside from your joint checking account, there are several other accounts linked to your name. Individually, a high-yield savings account, 2 CDs, and a trust account." I stared at her. There must be a mistake. Sam never mentioned any of that. Miriam clicked again. "These were all opened over the past 10 years. See here, your signature is on file. Looks like Sam had you sign these during other transactions. Maybe when you thought it was something else." I looked at the scanned images. There was my name, dated, witnessed, perfectly legal. "He never told me what I was really signing," I murmured. Miriam's voice grew gentler. "It's not uncommon. Some spouses want to protect the other from stress or complicated family dynamics." That phrase hit me like a brick. Complicated family dynamics. Sam knew, he saw it coming. "And the trust?" I asked. Miriam pulled up a new document. "The Lawson Legacy Trust, funded through monthly deposits from a business account under the name Riverbend Artisan Works, LLC. You're listed as the sole beneficiary. I blinked at the screen. Riverbend. That was the name of the cottage Sam used to joke about retiring to. I thought it was just a dream, a fantasy, but this was real, and something told me I had only seen the beginning. The following day, I sat in the corner office of Julianne Myers, CPA, fingers clenched around my leather purse. Her desk was stacked neatly with folders, each labeled with the calm authority of someone who knew exactly where every dollar belonged. I handled your husband's business filings for nearly 15 years, she said, offering me a kind smile. Sam was organized, methodical, and, above all, discreet. I nodded, still struggling to piece together the truth. I was told the business was sold years ago. Julianne blinked. Sold? No, ma'am. The business wasn't sold, it was restructured. She turned to her monitor and typed a few keys. 5 years ago, Sam transferred the business assets of Lawson Design and Millworks into a holding company called Riverbend Artisan Works, LLC. A month later, the LLC funded the Lawson Legacy Trust, and you, Mrs. Lawson, were named as its sole beneficiary. My throat tightened. I didn't know any of this. Not the name, not the trust, not the LLC. Julianne glanced at me. That was intentional. What do you mean? She folded her hands gently. Your husband suspected that certain family members might attempt to manipulate financial matters after his death. So he made sure everything, his business income, intellectual property, even long-term contracts, was moved into a trust structure they couldn't touch. I stared at her, my mind whirling. And the business still exists? I asked. Very much so. He scaled back the client list, took fewer contracts, but highly profitable ones. It's operated at a steady margin for the past 5 years. The income is automatically funneled into the trust. But Gregory said there was nothing left. He said Sam died with debt. Julianne raised an eyebrow. Your son contacted me a week after Sam's funeral, claimed he was stepping in to take over business operations. He wanted me to prepare paperwork transferring ownership of Riverbend to him. My jaw clenched. And you told him that I needed direct written authorization from the trust's beneficiary. She paused. He didn't know that was you. I sat back in my chair. Everything was a shifting beneath me. My understanding of my marriage, of my husband's final years, and of the son I thought I knew. Julianne reached for a folder. There's more, if you're ready. Sam left very detailed records, including every dollar he loaned your son, disguised as consulting payments. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Because in that moment, I understood exactly what Sam had done. He hadn't just saved for retirement. He had built a wall of protection around me in the form of signatures, trusts, and ledgers. And Gregory was about to find out just how solid that wall truly was. The entrance to Lawson Millworks still had Sam's faded sign swinging above it. Just seeing it made my chest tighten. Inside, the scent of sawdust and varnish clung to the air like memory. It was the smell of Sam's hands when he came home late from the shop, the scent of our livelihood. Mrs. Lawson, a gravelly voice called from the back. Derek Hines emerged from behind a half-finished oak cabinet, wiping his hands on a cloth. He looked older than I remembered, but his posture was still firm, his hands strong. "Derek," I said, surprised by the lump in my throat. "I wasn't sure if you'd still be here." He gave a small smile. "Your husband asked me to stick around, told me years ago, if anything happens to me, you wait for Fiona. She'll know what to do." Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them back. "Did you know he was moving the business into a trust?" He nodded. "He told me not to worry when the paperwork changed. Said it was to protect you, not to hide anything." We moved into the back office, where Derek pulled out a well-worn black notebook from a locked drawer. "I kept track of everything," he said. Sam wanted clean records, contracts, clients, and loan payments. He flipped to a section labeled G. Lawson. I leaned in. Page after page listed consulting draws, project advances, and equipment reimbursements. "These are loans?" I asked. Derek nodded. Sam made Gregory sign for every single one. Some formal, some informal, over $120,000 across 5 years. My breath caught. Has Gregory repaid any of it? Maybe a few thousand early on, Derek said. But lately, nothing. Sam never pushed him. Said it was better to keep things documented than to create a war. A quiet beat passed. Gregory came by the week after the funeral, Derek added, voice tight. Asked for the keys to the warehouse, access to the financial system, and a list of all current client contracts. My hands curled into fists. Did you give him anything? Derek snorted. I told him I don't take orders unless they come from the person Sam left in charge, and I hadn't heard from you yet. Relief flooded my chest. He had waited for me. So many people thought I was fragile, disposable, but Sam had known better, and Derek. He was ready to stand with me when the storm hit. I was pouring myself a cup of chamomile tea when I heard the tires on the gravel drive. Through the window above the sink, I saw Gregory's silver SUV swing into the driveway, followed by Tessa stepping out in her usual heels like she was arriving for a home staging. No knock, no courtesy. They just walked in. I didn't flinch. "Morning, Mom," Gregory said, brushing past me like I was a guest in my own house. "We thought we'd stop by to check your progress. The realtor wants photos by Friday." "Progress?" I asked softly, setting the teacup down. "On decluttering," Tessa snapped. "Potential buyers don't want to see old quilts and dusty ceramics everywhere." I turned toward them. My kitchen, Sam's kitchen, suddenly felt like a stage for a performance they thought they were directing. "Well," I said calmly, "you're welcome to stay for coffee. Derek will be joining us shortly." Tessa wrinkled her nose. "Why is the foreman coming here?" Before I could answer, Derek walked in the back door, still in his flannel shirt and work boots. His presence was solid, grounding. "Good morning," he said, politely but firmly. Gregory turned, startled. "What's he doing here?" "Mrs. Lawson invited me," Derek said evenly. "We've got a few business matters to review." Gregory's tone sharpened. "There are no business matters. Dad's gone. The company belongs to the family now." "And who in the family?" I asked quietly, turning toward him. Gregory looked confused. "To me, obviously, I'm the heir, the business, the house. Dad wanted them to stay in the family." I walked to the side table near the breakfast nook and picked up a folder I had placed there the night before. I handed it to Derek. "Would you please read aloud the document at the top?" I asked. Derek cleared his throat. "Beneficiary designation, Fiona Lawson, sole trustee and legal owner of all Riverbend Artisan Works, LLC assets under the Lawson Legacy Trust, effective as of June 12th, 2019. Gregory blinked. "What?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "Sam never left the company to you, Gregory. He transferred everything into a trust, with my name on it." Tessa reached for the folder, flipping through pages like they'd betray some forgery. Her hands were shaking. These are fake," she spat. "No," I said quietly. "They're notarized, filed, and confirmed by Sam's accountant and attorney." Gregory's face drained of color. "And what about this house?" Tessa hissed. "You're still moving out. The will gives Gregory this property." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Actually," I said, sliding one final sheet onto the table, "the house was refinanced last year. A home equity loan for $350,000 and all of it deposited into the trust." Gregory's voice was barely audible. "That means it's still under debt?" "It is," I said, folding my hands. "And the trust pays the mortgage, which means You don't own anything here." The silence that followed was delicious. For the first time, I watched my son realize he hadn't inherited an empire. He'd miscalculated, and he'd misjudged me. The door slammed behind them an hour later, but the echo lingered longer than it should have. I didn't move from my chair. I sat in the quiet, surrounded by Sam's files, Derek's unwavering support, and the sharp scent of fresh brewed coffee that none of us had touched. They had left without a word, without a plan, and I wasn't finished. The next morning, I met with David Lynn, my attorney. His office overlooked downtown Austin, tidy and precise like the man himself. He had represented Sam and me years ago when we updated our wills, and he'd always spoken to me like I understood everything. That morning, I did. "I've reviewed the entire trust structure," David said, tapping the thick folder on his desk. "Your husband was methodical. Every document was properly signed, notarized, and registered with the state. The Lawson Legacy Trust is ironclad." I exhaled slowly. "And the home equity loan?" "Valid," he confirmed. Sam applied as the sole property holder before transferring funds into the trust. And because the business is generating steady income, the loan is being serviced on schedule. I nodded. "And what about Gregory and Tessa trying to contest it?" David's expression barely flickered. "They can try, but we have something they don't." "What's that?" "Documentation, intent, and a clear pattern of financial separation." Sam didn't just move assets. He did so with a purpose, and he left a trail. I let the words settle in. Gregory thought he could bulldoze me with grief, that my silence meant surrender. He had mistaken mourning for weakness. "They've tried contacting Julianne," David added, "asking for financial disclosures. They're being politely stonewalled." "Let them dig," I murmured. "Let them find nothing." After the meeting, I drove to a coastal neighborhood Sam and I once visited on our 25th anniversary. Back then, he had lingered in front of a sunlit cottage with wide windows facing the ocean and whispered, "Someday, when we're done with everything else, this will be your view." I thought it was just a dream. But Margaret, Sam's accountant, had found a deed buried in the business portfolio. The cottage was real, purchased quietly 3 years ago through Riverbend LLC, titled to the trust. And now it was mine. No negotiations, no inheritance battles. Sam had left me more than money. He had left me choices. That night, I stood in the master bedroom of our old house for what I knew would be one of the last times. I ran my hand along the door frame, the one with faint pencil marks from when Gregory was small enough to need measuring every spring. Some people leave walls behind, some leave fortresses. Sam had done the latter, and soon I would decide which keys to keep and which doors to close forever. The envelope came on a Tuesday morning, tucked between an energy bill and a gardening catalog. I recognized the handwriting before I even touched it. Sharp, slanted, slightly impatient. Gregory's. I stood on the front porch of the oceanfront cottage, the breeze from the Pacific lifting the corner of the envelope in my hand. For a moment, I debated tossing it, letting the sea wind take it, letting silence answer silence. But curiosity won. Inside was a single sheet of plain white paper. Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. After everything that happened, after how we treated you, after what I said, I realize now that I misunderstood a lot. About Dad, about you, about what family is supposed to mean. Tessa and I were going through counseling. I've taken a second job. We're committed to making the payments the court ordered. I know I don't deserve a relationship with you, but I just wanted you to know. I finally understand why Dad protected you. And I'm sorry. Gregory. I read the letter 3 times, each word cutting a little softer than the last. The apology was real. Maybe not perfect, maybe not born of pure remorse, but of consequence. But it was more than I ever thought I'd get from my son. Still, my heart didn't leap with joy. It didn't forgive on command. The betrayal was a wound, deep, clean-cut, professional. Gregory had tried to erase me, not in rage, not in a fight, but with spreadsheets, tape measures, and estate assumptions. He had underestimated me. Now he was learning. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in a wooden box Sam once made for me when we were young, one of the few pieces I'd brought to the cottage. Would I ever speak to Gregory again? Maybe, but not because he apologized. It would be because he earned it, slowly, consistently, and without expectations. He had 8 years to pay his debt, and that might just be long enough to prove whether he had finally learned the value of what he almost threw away. The meeting room at the community center smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and freshly brewed coffee. I stood near the podium, clutching the index cards I didn't plan to use. Rows of women, some widowed, some divorced, others simply tired, waited quietly, their eyes full of questions they hadn't yet asked. Ellen Royce, the social worker who invited me, gave a small nod from the front row. So I began. I was told to grieve, pack my bags, and disappear, just 1 week after burying my husband. The room didn't move. My son said the house wasn't mine. My daughter-in-law said I was just the widow. and for a moment I believed them. I let the silence stretch. I wanted them to feel what I had felt. But my husband, Sam, he believed in something else. He believed in protection, in dignity, in building a fortress for the day he might not be there to defend me himself. Hands tightened on purses, eyes glistened. Financial abuse doesn't always look like theft. Sometimes it looks like entitlement, like people measuring your worth in property lines and dinner invitations. Sometimes it wears a smile and calls you mom. A soft gasp rippled through the crowd. I'm not here to talk about revenge, I continued. I'm here to talk about clarity, about what happens when you finally look at your life and say, "This is mine, you don't get to take it." When I finished, the room stood in applause, not thunderous, not dramatic, but full of understanding, the kind that comes when someone says something you've been waiting years to hear. That night, I returned to the coastal cottage, my little sanctuary where the windows welcomed the sea and the walls were all mine. I poured a glass of red wine, stepped out onto the deck, and watched the sun slip beneath the Pacific horizon. The ocean murmured its endless truth. Peace is earned. Gregory's debts would take years to repay. But the true inheritance wasn't money, it was respect, hard won and deeply rooted. Sam had left me freedom, but I was the one who finally claimed it. And from now on, no one would write me out of my own story. You are never just anything, not just the widow, not just the mother. You are the keeper of your own name, your legacy, and your power. Know your worth, protect your place, and never let anyone decide when your chapter ends.